I'm on the west coast of New Zealand and I'm going to teach you a ton of composition tips as well as safety tips about shooting seascapes on dangerous cliff faces and rocks. Let's get going. The west coast of New Zealand is cloaked in lush rainforest, and the coast north of Greymouth features fantastic rock stacks. The challenge is finding a way to reach the spectacular scenery. I've visited Motukiekie Rocks a dozen times, but this is the most exciting access route. I'm at the marvellous Motukiekie Rocks on the west coast of New Zealand. It's a beautiful place, but also dangerous. So in coastal locations like this, you've got to think about safety. You see, I'm about to scout and shoot a classic west coast sunset, but that means I'll be packing up in the dark and then climbing up through those cliffs at night time. So we better get prepared. So here's some really useful tips if you're shooting on a coastal location such as I. Firstly, I've put a new battery in my headlamp so I can get back up those cliffs at night. Number 2, bring someone with you. In case the brown and stuff hits the whirly thing. 3, bring a first aid kit and a personal locator beacon. This is for life-threatening emergencies. It'll bring a helicopter within about half an hour. 4, turn up super duper early. I've come here well before low tide just to scout the location and find the most suitable vantage point. This avoids me rushing. That could lead to a nasty accident. And finally, do your research. I planned this trip months ahead knowing that tonight I get a super duper low tide coinciding with sunset. And if you shoot when the tide's going out, it's a lot more reassuring than when big waves are advancing towards you and chasing you back up the beach. Plus, if the tide's going out while you're shooting, the beach will be washed clean of footprints and rocks may have a nice wet sheen. Since there's plenty of compositions around here, I'm going to have to do some scouting around. That's why I've come here early. The idea is to eliminate the mediocre compositions and just select 1 or 2 winners. Now, 7 o'clock, I've got 2 hours before sundown, so I better get cracking. The best idea is to shoot handheld or even just use a smartphone because it's quicker than using a tripod and setting up properly. Okay, let's go. When you check the tide charts for a specific location, also note the height. Tonight the low tide is only half a metre high, so that these rock shelves are exposed for a couple of hours. Right, let's talk composition. First up, for foreground interest, I'm using these wonderful orange starfish. They're quite infamous or notorious in these parts. They provide a big burst of bright colour in the foreground. They lock the viewer's eyes onto it. Secondly, I'm employing these little chasms or ravines between the rocks as a lead-in line, leading in to the focal point, which of course is the big rock stack in the distance. The fourth technique I'm using is the rule of thirds. So I'm placing the horizon on the top third of my photo. Right, let's talk camera settings. Briefly, it's f11, ISO 100, And my shutter speed I'm going to lengthen into several seconds long using filters. For really long exposures, we need to add a cable release. It's really imperative when you're shooting breaking waves, so I can actually time the breaking of the wave exactly when I want it. Using the 2-second timer is just a bit hit and miss, so you really need to invest in a good shutter release. The second thing is I've brought my filters along and I've fitted my adapter ring and filter holder to the front of the lens. This one's from NiSi. Oh, I didn't mention the Polarizer Filter, which is inbuilt into this filter holder. And just by pushing the small dial, I can darken the blue sky and make those white fluffy clouds really pop. Yep, that's great. I think we're ready to go. Let's get shooting. Right, let's wait for a wave. Well, I think it's time to call it a night and pack up. The tide's turning, the day's getting dark. Let's see how the photos turned out in Photoshop. I wasn't happy with these images, so I returned in winter. The tide wasn't really low enough, but the light was fantastic. If you want to make your seascapes more spectacular, get some ND filters from NiSi. Read more details below this video. Or watch the next movie where I demonstrate how the NiSi filter kit actually works. And don't forget to comment below.